Have you ever started something? An ambitious project, a new habit, a resolution at midnight on January 1st, only to abandon it halfway with a sigh and the silent hope that no one would ask how it went. If you've got a graveyard of half-written journals, half-built websites, or fitness plans that lasted 3 days, you're not alone. And here's the kicker. It's not your fault. At least, not entirely. You've been taught to believe that motivation is the secret sauce to getting things done. But motivation is a lie. The real magic? It's discipline. And Peter Hollins is about to show us how to build it from the ground up. Hello, I am Bharat, and welcome to Audiofybooks, where you will find excellent audio summaries of books in a very easy and interesting way. If you want to learn from new books, do subscribe to the channel. Let's get started with today's book. Imagine this. You're staring at a blinking cursor. The deadline's tomorrow, and you're 5 pages deep into a 20-page paper. Or maybe it's a business idea you've been nursing for months, but every time you sit down to make progress, Netflix whispers your name like an old friend. You promise yourself you'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow turns into next week, and then it turns into never. This is the trap Peter Hollins calls starting energy. We're great at beginnings. The buzz of possibility, the thrill of a new challenge, but once the novelty fades, we hit a wall. And unless we know how to break through it, we never finish what we start. Peter isn't just pointing fingers. He dives into the psychology behind why we quit. It turns out, most of us don't struggle because we're lazy or incapable. We struggle because we rely on feelings instead of systems. Think about that. How many times have you told yourself, I just don't feel like it today, or I'm not in the mood? Hollins argues that waiting to feel like working is like waiting for rain in the desert. You could die of thirst before it happens. Instead, he introduces the concept of emotional resistance. This is the invisible enemy, the discomfort, anxiety, boredom, or fear that creeps in when the honeymoon phase is over. When you realize writing that book isn't all inspiration and coffee shops. It's staring at a blank screen at 2 a.m., wondering why your characters suddenly sound like robots. That resistance tricks us into quitting. But here's the catch. If you learn to expect it, to recognize it, you can learn to push through it. Peter gives us a mental toolkit to do just that. One of the most powerful tools, starting ugly. We wait to feel prepared, to be in the perfect mindset, to have all the tools. But the truth is, progress beats perfection every single time. Let it be messy. Let it be clumsy. The act of starting, even poorly, builds momentum. And momentum is what kills resistance. Take this analogy. Think of your brain like a lawnmower after a long winter. That first tug on the cord might do nothing. The second tug sputters. But by the third or fourth pull, the engine roars to life. That's how action works. You don't need motivation to act. You need to act to generate motivation. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Peter dives into the role of identity and follow-through. This is deep stuff. He says it's not enough to do the things disciplined people do. You have to become someone who finishes. That subtle shift changes everything. If you tell yourself, I'm trying to write a book, your brain hears uncertainty. But if you say, I'm a writer, suddenly the actions that follow feel natural. Writers write, entrepreneurs build, athletes train. Finishers finish. Peter also warns us about the seductive trap of over-planning. You know the drill. Color-coded schedules, productivity apps, 10-page to-do lists. Planning gives us a dopamine hit, a sense of accomplishment without doing the actual work. But finishing isn't about the perfect plan. It's about execution. It's about putting in the reps, even on the days when everything inside you screams to quit. And then there's the environment. You may have superhuman willpower, but if your workspace is a chaos zone or your phone buzzes every 5 minutes, you're not setting yourself up to win. Peter urges us to engineer our surroundings for focus, remove friction, hide distractions, set visual cues. Make it easier to do the right thing than the wrong one. Want to read more? Put a book on your pillow. Want to run? Lay your shoes by the door. These little tweaks have massive compounding effects. One of my favorite parts is when Hollins talks about making discipline automatic. You know how brushing your teeth isn't a big deal? You don't overthink it, you just do it. That's what we want our habits to become. He suggests attaching new tasks to old ones called habit stacking. After I brew my coffee, I write for 10 minutes. After I brush my teeth, I review my to-do list. That anchor makes new behavior stick like glue. But it's not all grind and hustle. Peter reminds us that rewards matter. Celebrating progress, even the tiny wins, rewires your brain to associate action with pleasure. So yes, give yourself a high five when you cross something off. Or better yet, take a walk, grab a snack, do a dance, whatever makes you feel like the legend you are. Because you are. You're doing something most people never do. Finishing. Of course, Hollins doesn't sugarcoat it. He talks about the inevitable slump. That dark valley in every project where excitement dies and only grit remains. He calls it the suck. And when you hit it, you have two options. Quit and start something new, only to repeat the cycle. Or push through and earn the joy of completion. Most people never reach that joy, but the ones who do, they become unstoppable. He also challenges us to rethink how we measure success. It's not about how much you do, it's about how often you show up. A mediocre effort every day beats a perfect effort once in a blue moon. Consistency is the quiet engine behind every finished project. Show up, even if it's ugly, especially if it's ugly. Throughout the book, Peter peppers in examples, from authors and athletes to everyday people who've mastered the art of finishing. One story that stuck with me was about a woman who set a goal to write a novel. Instead of locking herself in a cabin, she wrote 200 words a day, barely a paragraph. But she did it every day. In 6 months, she had a manuscript, not because she was brilliant, but because she was consistent. And that's the final, powerful truth of this book. Finishing isn't about brilliance, motivation, or raw talent. It's about building habits, understanding your resistance, and showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because once you become someone who finishes what they start, everything changes. You trust yourself more. You build confidence brick by brick, and you start to realize that the distance between where you are and where you want to be isn't luck, it's discipline. So next time you feel the urge to quit, to put it off, to switch to something shinier, pause. Ask yourself, what would a finisher do? Then take one step. Just one. That's how it begins. Not with fireworks, not with grand declarations, but with a quiet decision. I will finish this, no matter how long it takes, no matter how messy it looks. Because finishing isn't just about crossing the line. It's about who you become along the way. And with that, thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs a little push to keep going. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. You've got the tools now. You've got the insight. All that's left is to finish.